In the decades before the collapse of the 1930s, we had the same redistribution. It blew up. And then in the 1930s, there was the reverse, the redistribution down. So what happened in the 1930s? Just remember our history. You taxed corporations and the rich in a way you hadn't before. And what did you do with the money? You created the Social Security system, which gives to everybody who reaches age 65 a pension. We passed the first minimum wage in the United States in the 1930s. We passed unemployment compensation for the first time in American history in the 1930s. And the big one, I haven't even mentioned, the federal government hired 15 million people who were unemployed and now had a job. That was a radical redistribution of wealth and income down to offset the explosion when it went too far up. You know where we are now? Too far up. In the decade.
Talk about the truth when it comes to Labor Day and Black people. Labor Day started on September 5th, 1882. 10,000 workers marched in New York City for shorter hours and better pay. Then on June 28th, 1894, President Grover Cleveland signed it into law after the Pullman strike really just shook the whole country. But let's be real. In 1894, Black workers were not being honored. From slavery to sharecropping to convict leasing after Reconstruction, Black labor has always built America's wealth, just rarely for us. By the 1890s, Jim Crow was locking us into low-wage work, and most unions kept Black workers from, one, being a part, and two, organizing and marching. And even labor laws excluded us. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 created minimum wage and overtime, but it carved out agricultural and domestic jobs, the jobs that majority of the Black people had. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that it even became illegal to discriminate against Blacks on a job. But Black folks didn't sit back. In 1925, A. Philip Randolph founded the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the first major Black union recognized in America. That fight not only brought real wins for Black workers, but Randolph went on to help organize the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and his work made such an impact and his legacy will live on forever. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the Black unemployment rate this summer was 6.2%, compared to 3.4% for white workers. The Houston Chronicle reports that since May, over 300,000 Black women have either left or been pushed out of the workforce. And EPI data shows that Black workers are 17% of all low-wage jobs, even though we're just about 12% of the population. And even if you have a job and you make great money, you still need to give a damn. So look, today you should rest. I'm gonna rest. Yes, you should have a cookout. Food gonna be hidden. But while you rest, also remember this. Black labor has always been the backbone of America, even when laws and unions left us behind.
Good morning, and all that is true. I just wish he would have quoted from Black news sources because we've reported even deeper numbers than that. But nonetheless, I'm very petty and I accept it. Niele, how are you?
Peace and love, everybody, and welcome to Let It Be Known, where we bring you the headlines that are impacting and uplifting the Black experience. We have some more news about how the unions spent their day yesterday, a little bit later in the show. Plus, we have some headlines about New Edition, Orange G. Yes, we are going to talk about the U.S. Open, and we'll tell you for Black History what Aretha Franklin song became #1 today. But of course, the topic of discussion is jobs in America.
When you said RNG, I thought you was gonna say we're gonna talk about JJ Fad. Why JJ Fad? but yeah, and Attorney Ben Crump, Greer shared this with us, posted that there is no state in the U.S. where a 40-hour minimum wage work week is enough to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. That is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah,
and that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Most importantly, yeah. And the first story that we have this morning talks about how this job crisis is impacting African American women.
Yeah, and it is. So Donald Trump's purge of the federal workforce is a direct assault on Black women. Peggy Carr, the nation's top statistician, I should say, on education, as commissioner of the National Center for Education Statistics, was escorted out like trash. Denise Joseph, who spent a decade in the Office of Post-Secondary Education supporting grants for minority-serving institutions, said her career was wiped out in one day. And Kissy Chapman Thaw, an education policy expert who joined the department after 12 years of teaching, was tossed aside simply for taking a diversity training class. The numbers don't lie. 319,000 Black women lost jobs in just 5 months, while white women gained more than 365,000 jobs. This isn't about downsizing. This isn't about anything but erasing Black women from public service. And Trump's federal cuts are proof that Black women are the first erased. And the question becomes, Niele, will America let them be the last?
Yeah, we talked about this, and we had Dr. Shauna Charles on the show last month or so ago, talking about the over 300,000 jobs that were lost by Black women, particularly. And when we just talk about Black women in particularly, we know that the federal jobs that he began to chop off in DC and across the country, because it did impact federal state workers as well. The most impacted were Black women. And it's interesting when you think about who's holding democracy together. You know, when you talk about, you think about the lawmakers that are holding the line, the Texas lawmakers from a state and federal situation. It's like Black women are still trying to save this country, as we are the most victimized by this country, as we just specifically focus on jobs.
Without question. And where's the outrage? I mean, are you, maybe I'm missing it, but is there outrage about this?
I mean, I think when we had Dr. Shauna Charles on, it was good to have her, because it's like, no, there's outrage, but at the same time, we talked a lot about the Black woman pivot, right? And so it's like, what is our pivot? What do we do to, shift from one direction to another, not by choice, but by force? And so instead of us having outrage, we're more concerned about, what is our next move?
Hmm.
Do we continue to stay in the career path that we were on, or do we pivot into something else? Because, women in general, we're multitaskers. Black women, we take it to times 10. And
Hmm.
so I think that's the more important thing that we as Black women are trying to figure out is, what is our pivot? How do we not be so dependent on these government jobs and these jobs now that back in the day, a day's work for a day's pay, 40-hour work week, would be able to pay your rent and to help you take care of your family. And now that's just not the case. And so it's not about finding a 40-hour work week with a 401k plan and a retirement plan, because that's over with. It's
Hmm.
totally gone. And so it's more about, what is our pivot, and how do we keep our mental health,
Hmm.
intact.
Yeah, it's a good point because listen, I came from a very big family, mostly single mother who worked for the Social Security Administration, and we had a house,
Mhm,
she had a car, we had everything we needed.
mhm.
We didn't go without. We wasn't on public assistance, and it today, like what we are saying, they they've taken away that pipeline to, because the federal jobs back then were seen as a pipeline to the middle class,
Right.
and now they're all, it's forget about it. I was talking to someone over the weekend about the black press, right? You talk about women, black women. So there are roughly 200 newspapers in the black press of America's family, right? NMPA. Many of them are owned by, many of these newspapers are owned by black women. And you just wonder how much further they can go the way, this thing is going, with the attack on diversity, with the attack on Black women in particular. And so, what can we do? Again, it's a community thing. If you value your Black women entrepreneurs, then you step up. It's like you were talking about Fawn Weaver. She's getting all these Black folks to step up and buy her product. Well, folks, step up and support all these other Black women businesses.
Yeah, I think that we are, I mean, it's like a catch-22 because you do see so many Black entrepreneurs that have decided, a day's work for a day's pay, a 40-hour work week is not really, how you want to do it. You want to work hard, you want to play harder. And so, you just have to find like, I think that, Dr. Shauna, when she was like, what is our pivot? I think that is like crucial for us to be like, okay, I've done this all my life, but it's a wrap, right? What is my pivot? What is my next phase to do it? And I think these millennials and these Gen Zers are really going to find out just how good their parents and their grandparents had it, because it was a good thing to have a secure job, right? You knew that you were gonna work, you're gonna have your retirement party, and then you was gonna get your Social Security,
Your pension.
Oh, you just went away. Your pension, you were gonna get all of that. And so now we just have to figure out, like what is the next phase in this new world order that we're finding ourselves in. It's not the same as yesterday. And so, it goes back to what's our pivot, being an entrepreneur myself. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, like a 9 to 5 was never something that I just, could do. And so it's been hard, but it's had its ups and downs, it's had its wins, it's had its losses, but it's on my terms, right? And so I think that a lot of us are just learning how to continue. Those of us who have been entrepreneurs are learning how to continue that. And then for those who are entering a new phase, to where like April Ryan, she has her Monday show, right? Where she's really, identifying Black women who are really in their pivot. When you look at those Black women that she has on her show, if you haven't seen it, guys, I think it's called Black Business Mondays. April Ryan does it every Monday. She has all of these terrific, magnificent Black women on, highlighting their businesses. And a lot of those women got to that after they've had a career, but they've learned to they love to make coffee mugs, or they want to be authors. And so, you see a lot of the pivot in that show that April Ryan does on Mondays. And it's very inspiring for the women who, might be afraid to take that leap. But, why not? Especially under this Trump clan administration, nothing is guaranteed except what we do for ourselves.
Yeah, Dr. Joni says, I think young people believe influencing on social media is the pivot, but it absolutely is not, she says. Michelle Madison says her maternal grandparents immigrated to the U.S. from the Caribbean, where they gave birth to her mother and her siblings. She was one of the first female officers to serve in Baltimore's police force. I think we need to support Black women more than ever.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Joni brings up a really good point. Even when we look at a social influencer, but we still don't even know what's going to happen with TikTok next week or this month, shall I say, right? So if you put all your investment in being a TikTok influencer and you have been getting paid, what happens when Donald Trump says that's over? That app that you have is no longer relevant. You have to download the new app for the new owner and you have to start all over again. Yeah. What if you have to build all your numbers back up, right? And then a lot of these things like Meta and X, they're not owned by Black people. And so when we go back to, when we had Isaac Hayes on, it has to be more intentional than just being an influencer. It has to be that we have to be stakeholders as well, right? Not just influencers, but stakeholders. And we just, as Black people, have a hard time investing in our own village.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out And I know it's still relatively early in that process. You mentioned Isaac Hayes. What am I getting out of my investment in fan base?
I mean, your ROI, it might not be now, it might be something that you have to sit on for a couple years, and so, I mean, I think that it's not just your investment, but it's also your participation as well, because you have to build it. And the reality is, it's not enough people over on fan base, maybe for you to have a ROI, a return on investment, right now at this particular moment, because I see he's pivoting, right? So he was so intentional about fan base, but now he has pivoted to being a news source. So if you go to his page now, he's putting out content, because it wasn't just enough to have fan base and say, hey, Black folks, this is Black owned, come over here. He had to pivot to where he was a part now of the conversation to draw people over there. And so, he's working on his pivot to be able to get you your return on investment.
Okay, I'm watching.
Yeah. It's tough.
So
It's tough. I mean, think about it. Everybody's on Meta, everybody's on X, everybody's on Snapchat, everybody's on Truth. What is the blue thing? But those are all white owned. They're not Black owned. I don't know who they could be owned by, Asian, but it's not Black owned. And
mhm.
so until we not only become the influencers, but also the stakeholders, we're going to always find ourselves with the possibility of being just like 300,000 Black women. You're in today, you're out tomorrow.
Mhm. Well, folks, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is in full meltdown mode, and Black America can't afford to ignore it. The firing of Dr. Susan Manares and the mass resignations that followed gutted programs on HIV, reproductive health, and chronic disease that protect our communities. 600 employees were laid off, wiping out violence prevention and HIV divisions at a time when Black Americans are diagnosed with HIV 7 times the rate of whites. Hundreds of millions in grants to states like Georgia and Texas have been canceled. It stripped resources from where Black populations are the greatest. And now a venture capitalist with no medical background is running the CDC. So here's what
Mhm.
Black folks need to know: programs that save lives are being dismantled, but there are steps we can take. Experts say lean on trusted alternatives like the Vaccine Integrity Project. Push state and local governments, goes back to Niele's point about state and local governments. Push them to step in where federal guidance fails. Support local public health innovations and demand accountability for cuts that hit Black health first. Folks, this isn't just politics, it's about survival.
100%. I mean, this is truly what FAFO means. It's scary out here going to the grocery store. Like, we're not even getting half the recalls that we should probably have. And when you look at, like, there was a revolt over at the CDC. There was a mass walkout of,
Mhm.
employees and scientists, because they are trying to warn us, like, we have no idea. Basically what they're saying is, we have no idea what this Trump clan administration is, walking away from, just science, just like the protections that, all of the CDC has built up, and for them to just cut it down in the blink of, like, what, 6 months. I mean, I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't think that we realize. I think in September, Stacy, this month, a lot of people are really going to start to feel the impact and the
Oh
effect of
yeah.
this Trump clan administration. This
Oh
was the
yeah.
month, from the tariffs,
Yeah.
all the countries, that are now saying they're not sending us anything. A lot of the deadlines that Trump had mandated when he first got into office, they start to kick in this month. So I think we're really going to start to feel the impact. And I think that's what most of the majority of these influencers that are just like, it's not that bad.
Mhm.
Hey, look, they're about to FAFO.
Yeah, because a lot of the legislation that was passed, the big ugly bill and all that stuff, that's when it's going to start kicking in. The beginnings, it hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah, it has
It's going to
not
start
kicked in
kicking in.
that.
And we also, September, like you said, this month and next month, when open enrollment begins, when you see that there are no more subsidies, there are no more the government paying part of your premium.
Hmm.
Premiums are expected to just balloon as if they're not already sky high.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that as you said, that FAFO, we're starting to we're starting to really see it now.
We're starting to really see it. And if we saw over the weekend, another thing to pay attention to is how, our adversaries are beginning to come together. You saw over the weekend Putin, the leader of China and India. The prime minister or the leader of India got pissed off at Trump because of the tariff. So now you see him over there with China and Putin, and they're saying forget the European and all of those summits and people that they brought together. Look at them. We're going to come together. And now they're trying to take over what the United States used to be known for. And that's like, world dominance, kind of being the leader of the free world. Now, look who is trying to take the space of the free world. And Donald Trump is giving it to him.
Well, yeah, he the Trump administration, Trump clan, as you say, administration. They are focused on really buttoning up the United States, having a standalone, and where you see this true dictatorship. It's just sticks out in my mind that when I went to DC, um, and watched how it looks exactly like it's an occupied territory, like it's in this third world country with all the military vehicles and the armed officers walking around. It This is what he wants. He wants to get everybody out who he feels doesn't belong here. People who don't English is not their first language or they don't look the part, and um and he wants to close the borders and all of that, not because of the immigration situation, not because it's out of control. Some may say it is out of control, it could be but not because that's not the reason. Even if it is out of control is what I'm saying. It's because this guy really looks at himself, looks in the mirror and sees dictator and wants to carry out dictatorship things.
Yeah, Orange G, that is a dangerous combination. And I believe they said, I think it was China is preparing for a military parade, the one that Donald Trump thought he was going to get. And all three of those men are going to have been invited, including North Korea's leader.
Wow.
So they are planning, a hostile takeover. And then I read to where, the European countries are warning their citizens to, just be prepared for a 72-hour, anything to happen, right? And so
Mm.
you see all of these things happening, and us as United States, we're just out there. We're just out here lost.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they are laughing at us, Michelle Madison. And let's be clear, they don't want Donald Trump to die. All over the weekend, everybody was like, has it happened yet? They were saying how,
Wow.
because Donald Trump didn't have anything on his press docket for
It
like 4 or
disappeared.
5 days. And so people were like, huh, what is going on? Labor Day? You don't have nothing to say for Labor Day, so something is definitely going on in that White House. And to be honestly truthful, I don't think they want him to die. They want him to stay alive because it allows them to have, control, because they know he's crazy. And I think once, we don't want anything to happen to anybody, but if anything did happen to Donald Trump, I think that would mess up their game plan.
Well, I'm not sure that it would, Niele. I think that they are a well-oiled machine. That Heritage Foundation and all those folks behind this, I think that they are ready to. He's the probably right now the best figurehead for it all. Yes, but I think they would almost seamlessly move on, whether it be with JD Vance or
See, I
MAGA Mike or
disagree.
someone else.
I
Okay.
disagree. I think Donald Trump is like just like Obama. Like Obama got everybody to the polls, but it was the rest of the people who couldn't make us, stay involved. I think
Mhm.
that Donald Trump is the push behind MAGA. He's able to mobilize the base. And without a Trump at the forehead, I don't think that they would have the support that Donald Trump has. I just don't think they have it.
That's well, you may be right. He does know how to get the crazies out there to the polls, that's for sure. And he knows how to. He has given them the blueprint on how to steal elections and how to make
Right.
sure some don't even happen. So we will see. Dr. Joni says, "I worry what follows after Trump. The puppet is gone. What follows may be much worse."
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. You never
yeah,
know.
you
But I
never
think
know.
that I think that if he goes away, there is an opportunity. There is an opportunity for hope, right? That was Obama's word, hope. I'm hopeful, but we'll see. Donald Trump does have a press conference today. I believe it's 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. And there is lots of talk about his health. He looks very sick. Lots of conversations over the weekend. So I think it'll be interesting to see what he has to say and more importantly, what he looks like today.
What's the deal? Somebody was throwing bags out the White House windows from the top floors of the White House. Did you see that?
Really?
Yeah.
I
What's
wouldn't be
happening over?
surprised.
What's happening? I'll tell you what. It's the projects. So the White House is the projects. I'm gonna tell you right now. Quentin says the scary part is who fills the void once Trump is gone. But yes, they were throwing like bags or something, and somebody said it was rocks and something else they were throwing out the window.
Yeah, I mean Quinn says they wonder who will fill the void. Well, JD Vance has already reportedly been seen saying, he's ready to take office at any time. So the conversation is real over there at the White House about what's the next steps. And JD Vance, he's ready. He's been
That
vacationing and standing on the outside, but he's just letting you know when the time comes, he's ready.
that fueled even more to talk about Trump over the weekend too, because it was like, where is he? Nobody knew. There was nothing on the schedule. And JD Vance, I don't know when he did the interview, but it can't. The interview was released over the weekend where he said he's ready to be president, and so it only fueled all of this. And Trump is going to. It's going to be such a bombastic press conference today. So
Yeah, well,
um,
it really we want to see what his strength level looks like. Well, you know what I'm saying? Because they say when he got into that car, that distant picture, he didn't look well at all. And you didn't really see much. They kept the photographers far away. Usually he has something to say, didn't say nothing, just kind of like, I have to do this because I see what's, being said. So you have to do this, Mr. President. That's what they were telling him. But
hmm,
it'll be interesting to see his, not just what he says, but how he looks
yeah.
this
Well,
afternoon.
yeah. Well, folks, here is another reason to protect your heart health and your mental health. One in four
Mm.
people will face a mental health disorder in their lifetime, yet far too many go untreated, and that neglect is costing lives. Depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, PTSD, and anxiety don't just affect the mind, they cut life expectancy by 10 to 20 years, largely because of heart disease, according to the latest uh, from several combined studies. The numbers are really chilling. Uh, Depression rises cardiovascular risk by 72%. It also rises schizophrenia by 95%, bipolar disorder by 57%, PTSD by 61%, and anxiety by 41%. So, what the experts are saying is that exercise is one of the most effective treatments, improving both mood and heart. But healthcare systems keep treating the mind and the body as separate. And until that changes, these deadly disparities, according to experts, will remain.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot there. It's a lot. So you gotta watch your heart health. Uh, because it has a great effect, according to these experts, on your mental health, including how it contributes to bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and other mental health situations.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you brought it up before, like when we look at our healthcare system, will people be able to even afford healthcare to even get diagnosed
Yep.
or to have the support and preventative, because prevention is better than intervention. And so, will that access to high preventative medicines, and if it comes to intervention, if you'll be able to even afford it.
Yeah. And Dr. Jones says again, nearly all mental health research has been gutted, as have services for mental and physical health. And so it's, yeah, the challenges are real, folks, real. Take care of your mental health as best you can. Take care of your physical health as best you can.
Mhm.
Um, Also this morning, finally, there's power in turning the page, and Project Still I Rise is showing what the power can do. Project Lit, um, they're not just tackling the literary crisis, they're opening doors, reading literacy, financial literacy, STEM literacy, and community sustainability. The need is urgent. The 2024 NAEP shows only 12% of Black fourth graders and 38% of Black eighth graders are proficient in reading. But the response has been bold by equipping children with culturally relevant books, passionate teachers, and community support. Project Still I Rise continues to prove that literacy is more than survivable. It's the pathway to leadership, success, and self-determination. So this project, Still I Rise, is rewriting the story of failing Black fourth graders and others. They're giving children the skills to rise, to lead, and to win. So there is, as you mentioned that word earlier, Niele, there's hope out there.
Yeah, definitely. Just sad that these organizations like this, like, grants and federal funding has been gutted. And so they have to get more creative about how they even, sustain the work that they're doing. Um, but Black folks have always made something out of nothing. When we go back to education, and empowerment, even dating back to slavery, some of us had to hide and do it, but we did it. So organizations like this are just, just a sign that, there's still, like you say, hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And you remember they used to say reading is fundamental,
Hmm.
but with so much, even the young people, the children, they have so much on their plate today.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of challenges, but you got to take time out. We talked about the physical health and the mental health. Well, reading helps to contribute to a healthier mental health outcome.
For sure, for sure. And in more headlines, over 1,000 Labor Day rallies were held yesterday across the U.S. to protest, of course, Donald Trump. Now, it was called Workers Over Billionaires, and the protests drew thousands in all 50 states across the country. And protesters were demanding stronger worker protections, fully funded schools, health care, and housing for all, and an end to corporate corruption. Now, they also wanted to address attacks on marginalized communities and federal overreach under the Trump administration. So, everything that we pretty much talked about this morning, the protests yesterday were all about that, workers over billionaires. We talked about Black women. We just talked about, community based programming. We just talked about healthcare. And so, once again, the American everyday people were out on the front line marching for all of this. And the sad part about it is you really didn't see much about this yesterday in the news, because Donald Trump has kind of taken over news and media. This type of hope, or letting the American people know what's really happening in these streets, is being suppressed. But hundreds of thousands of people were out yesterday marching to save democracy. So people are on the front line, no matter how much Donald Trump tries to suppress it. And once again, this is, a sign of hope that the people are still fighting for democracy in this country.
Right. And you're right. The news gets suppressed. That information gets suppressed because where's Donald Trump? What's Donald Trump doing? But you could also, there is the thing that kills me with mainstream news is that you got enough resources to cover both. If you really have to tell us every minute that you haven't found Donald Trump, then you can take a few minutes to cover these things as well.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, union workers, on their day off, they were on the front line, which is what they traditionally do. And so shout out to all of the union workers, union members, service providers that continue to keep our country working. If nobody else told you today, we appreciate you. Now, heading to DC, lawmakers are back in Washington after their month-long recess, and they face a mountain of legislative work as the GOP tries to, break through all of this Trump Klan agenda. And at the top of Congress to-do list is reaching an agreement to fund the government beyond the current September 30th deadline. And we know that Donald Trump loves theatrics, so they're probably going to wait until September 29th midnight to decide how they're going to fund the government. And then we have to be in this teeter-tatter as they do. And then because he wants to look like he is the one that pushed it through. But we know during recess, a lot of those Republican lawmakers went back to their districts and they got booed. They couldn't even go. Some of them didn't even have town halls in their districts because they didn't want to deal with it. And the ones that did, they got met with a lot of smoke. So now they're back in DC. I know I saw this morning Don Lemon said he's headed to DC to hit the streets to talk to lawmakers because there's a lot at stake right now. And with the ill president, it'll be interesting to see how the GOP navigates through this situation with a half coherent president.
Oh, the other thing too, these temporary, these stopgap measures, they've been going on since really 2023 instead of they have not been able to come together on a long-term measure. And this would be, if they get it done, and if it's another stopgap measure, it'll be maybe about the 6th or 7th one in a row. But the other part of it is with Trump eliminating so many government employees and consolidating departments, it wouldn't surprise me that this is the time where they will allow it to shut down.
Yeah. So, a lot to pay attention to in September. And I also saw it going viral on TikTok. I did some research I didn't go as far as to call, but I also saw that yesterday, and I hope this isn't true, but maybe you can tell me, Stacy, or Greer can chime in, that Georgia Browns, yesterday was the last day, and it closed down. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not.
Yeah, that was circulating. A lot of people were on TikTok saying they were headed to Georgia Browns for the last brunch. I did go as far back to see that July 1st, that they were saying that they were going to close and the property was up for lease. And then they were saying yesterday was the last day. So we're going to do some more investigation about that. But that was a Black institution. I know during the Congressional Black Caucus, the Arizona informant Clovis has that brunch every year at Georgia Browns. And so if it is closed, I mean, I just think that's just another impact of, we got to figure out what the pivot's going to be.
Yeah, I have not seen that. I did see that back on July 1st. The Business Journal reported that it was poised to close, but that's all I've seen, So hopefully,
it's all over TikTok that and people were there. They were posting that it was the last Sunday brunch yesterday. And that, because it was up for lease. So assuming somebody, picked up the lease. So yeah, so we'll continue to follow that story. Historic Black owned restaurant in DC that a lot of lawmakers went to as well.
Right.
Possibly gone.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, let's head to the city of Boston, where over the
Uh-oh.
weekend, New Edition was celebrated. And the mayor declared it to be New Edition Day, as the corner of the center where most of the group was raised was renamed the New Edition Way. Now, Mayor Michelle Wu called it an honor to welcome home Roxbury natives' New Edition to celebrate their global impact from our communities here in Boston to the music industry worldwide. I mean, I think that is so well deserved. New Edition is like the Gen X Temptations, or it was like they're like our Temptations or our Four Tops. Like we, some of us say I'm a candy girl for life, and I am a candy girl for life. And so to see them celebrated in such a way in their hometown, and they were so excited. Thousands of people turned out for this, and so congratulations to New Edition.
Mike V says, I'm in Boston, and that was a glorious day for the community.
Oh, nice. Okay, you were there. Okay,
how about
yeah.
that? And Dr. Nicole says it's about time.
So deserved, so deserved. And all of their families were there. They're all family men now. But the way that, go ahead.
I think it's fair to say that they put Black Boston on the map.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And the way that they just like appreciate us as fans. I don't know if you guys were able to check them out at their residency in Las Vegas, but when I tell you the way they make us candy girls feel special, I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And it's so much fun. And when you see them, they are ready to give you all the candy girl love they could give. They appreciate us. And that's what you want as a fan. For the person that you are adoring and fanning out on to give you that love back. In New Edition, all of them, Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, and Ralph, Johnny too, they all give you that.
Well, Johnny's not from Boston.
No, he's not. But he's an honorary Boston person now because he's a member of New Edition.
And RNG says that he's a Celtics fan, and that is the most Black people that I've ever seen in Boston. Congratulations, New Edition.
Yeah, congratulations to any for life.
And real quick, Niele, Mike V brings up a point, not to put any to put any water to the flame, but he says we will see if Trump tries to occupy the New Edition Way community with his toy soldiers.
Okay. Okay.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Let's head over to Shiloh Sanders, who is considering what his next pivot will be. He's another person that has to consider a pivot. As the Buccaneers release him, he says everything is great. And the 25-year-old remains optimistic that his next opportunity, whether it involves the NFL, music, modeling, acting, or any of his multiple talents, he says he's ready for the challenge. I know he plays the piano very well. And so he's trying to figure out what his pivot will be. I think he's still giving the NFL time. He still does have time to be picked up. Doesn't sound like he's too interested in going to that Canadian league that had the first rights if the NFL didn't want him. But he's trying to figure out what his pivot will be.
And Greer said she thought maybe Pittsburgh would be interested. I guess it is going to be interesting to watch this. I just believe, I don't know how good or how not good he is, but I just think that this stuff has everything. It's petty beyond, it's pettiness that goes lower than my pettiness with the NFL and the way this stuff with Deion Sanders is. This is about Deion Sanders, if you ask me. The way that they're treating his kids, his protege. Yeah, this is all about Deion Sanders. The jealousy. I'm not a Deion fan. Don't care too much about Deion, but I will say that this is about, they are lashing out at Deion and they're taking it out on his kids.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it gives you a little bit of like how Colin Kaepernick was treated. You know, if the NFL and the owners decide to go against you, to me, the NFL is the closest thing to slavery that is reminiscent of it. You know, like how they treat black players, and how they look at them as a piece of property. And I'm say that when I say slavery, how they look at them as a piece of property, and how they, you know, you conform to us or there's a price to pay.
Mhm.
And so when you see people like talking about a LeBron James, even though, you know, I'm not the happiest with what he's doing out here with the LA Lakers, the way that he decided to not be a piece of property and to understand his value and what he brings to the league. You don't see that in the NFL. They really have that slave mentality. And it's just sad to see because these young men, whether they are, like you say, I don't know how good they are, but the value, the
Mhm.
notoriety, the
That's the other
fandemonium
part.
that they
Mhm.
bring to the league. When his brother Shador, you know, threw that preseason touchdown, his jersey skyrocketed, right?
Mhm.
People wanted to see him play. And the fact that they treat them like that, they still feel like they're more valuable than the players.
See, what you just described, again, it only strengthens the argument that this is personal against Dion because generally, no matter how good or how bad a player is, that player is making you money. And apparently, these Sanders kids are making money for you. There's no reason to cut them. There's no reason to cut a quarterback. You never use your third string quarterback anyway. You could have left him on that bench as the third string just for the income alone that his jersey sells and his presence was bringing. And the fact that nobody has yet picked him up, this is collusion in the worst form. And this is about this is ridiculous because they're cutting their nose literally despite their faces here.
For sure. And Patricia, I'm with you. The saddest part is that they love the sport. And they not only do they love the sport, but they also love walking in their father's footsteps, you know. And so for the NFL to take that away from them for petty reasons,
Hmm.
it's heartbreaking. You know, these young, they're young, gifted, and black, and they're using their talents. They definitely serve their community. You see them all the time, like in the community of the team that they play for, especially Shador at the high schools, you know, giving back. And for them to, you know, just to treat these black men like that, it makes it hard to like watch the NFL. You know what I'm saying?
NFL should be treated by and this is should have been a long time ago. It should be now, but they should be treated by black folks the way the black folks are being told to treat Target.
Right, right. But it also goes back to, you know, like other things we were talking about social media and being influencers. Like, you know, with all of that, we should be supporting Ice Cube's Big Three more. You know, where are the black owned teams? Where are the black owned? You know, we have a lot of minority stakeholders in football teams. Like you have Maggie Johnson, a minority owner in the Commanders in DC. But it's just like, how do we get more equity in the sports that we actually have built and are the backbone of their success? Black athletes are the backbone success of all of these sports franchises. You know, NFL, NBA, can't really
Major
say
League
much
Baseball.
about, but baseball is still minorities. You know what
Yeah, I
I
said
mean?
Major League Baseball
Yeah.
as well. And listen, I have learned through my excitement about hockey is how vital a role, and folks will be surprised if you do the research. Black players have had in the NHL.
Mm,
So it's there. That sport is not excluded. Hockey
right,
is not
right.
excluded. So
Yeah.
here we are.
And Dr. Maryland, yes, Bobby Brown and his entire family was there in Boston as well.
Bobby,
I just had to go
Bobby
back.
was
Gotta
representing.
keep the NE. I gotta keep the NE headlines, to point. But but speaking of how much we contribute to culture, the U.S. Open. A lot of eyes were on the U.S. Open this weekend.
Yes.
Yes, and yesterday Naomi Osaka defeated Coco Gauff at the U.S. Open to reach her first major quarterfinal since 2021. But that match had high ratings.
It was
And
very much anticipated.
yeah, I mean high ratings. And I watched it. I'm not the biggest US Open. My aunt has watched tennis forever, so she kind of gets an attitude when, oh, now you want to jump on the back. Look, I'm here, okay, and I'm engaged. I can't name all the players, but I definitely know the black ones.
Yeah, this was so we had the whole controversy last week about that chick talking about no, uneducated, blah blah blah. Townsend, and she responded very well, and she went on to win and play even better since that. But this right here, so the backstory with Naomi and Coco Gauff is I forget how many years ago when they first squared off, and Coco was in tears, and how Naomi and her handled that situation. You talk about the most classiest thing that you've seen on the tennis court, perhaps in all the sports. And to have them meet again and discuss it, they discussed it beforehand. The respect Coco had and has for Naomi, and vice versa,
Mhm.
is almost unmatched. And to have them face off now, it wasn't particularly as competitive as fans would have loved to have seen that match, but the fact is that there was no loser in that situation. There was no
Yeah, we
loser
talked
there.
about that. We talked about
Yeah.
yesterday the growth of Coco because yesterday she had no tears. She took it on the chin. She congratulated Naomi and she walked off the court, and
Hmm.
I think that just shows her growth, as
Hmm.
when the first time it broke her heart. This time she took it like a champ. I didn't get it, walked off the court, didn't need that extra hug that she needed. And I think also they gave the example of how you gracefully take a loss
Without
versus
question.
last week we
Without
saw,
question.
you don't have any class, you don't have any education, white
Hmm.
woman couldn't take it. But this right here just showed class and it showed growth in Coco as she has matured and grown as an athlete in this sport. And I mean, there's more to come for her.
Yeah.
We definitely look forward to seeing her play. Venus played yesterday. And so, and then, my aunt was teaching me about the black male tennis players. And so once again, when black folks get involved, they pretty much dominate. And add an off factor. You saw so many celebrities in that in that
Yeah.
audience, which you do, but it seemed like it was heightened,
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
all
Without
of the
question.
black tennis players.
And RNG says, what I love about the black female tennis players, they all recognize Miss Althea Gibson. They really do. And give it up to Naomi Osaka. She has gone through a whole lot, including, we talked earlier about mental health, including, making sure to protect her mental health. I just enjoy her. I enjoy Coco Golf a whole lot as well, but I enjoy Naomi so much. And she's always carried herself in this so professional, kind way. And so both of them deserve the applause that they got over the weekend.
Yeah, and Naomi plays for Japan. I learned because she didn't get the endorsements. And so she was overlooked. And so she decided to play for Japan. And she doesn't even play for the US. She represents her other country, which is Japan.
Well, hey, like you said, pivot.
Yeah, you got to pivot. Michelle says Venus Williams did so well too at 45 years old. Yes, she did, and I loved her outfit. I loved her tennis outfit. I don't know
What
if we can
what
get it up, Greer, but I
what
loved
Venus
her
is,
outfit.
yeah, what she's doing at 45 is even more impressive than what Jimmy Carnes did. If you follow tennis back in the 80s when he was in his 40s, and he made a great run at the U.S. Open. But Venus is, I think, is more impressive because she's overwhelming folks even at 45.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She still got it.
Yeah, there you have it. And I guess that's your headlines for today.
For
You
sure.
end you end with the women, of course you do.
The women with the pivot.
Women with the pivot. So gonna pivot to Black history. And here's a trio of sort of Back to the Future type events that happened on this date. First, on this date in 1957, Governor Orval Fabius of Arkansas used the National Guard to prevent the Little Rock Nine from attending Central High School, leading to President Eisenhower sending in federal troops. And on the same day in 1957, Edward Judge Aaron was brutally attacked and mutilated by members of the KKK in Birmingham, Alabama, for seeking integration. And on this date in 1963, Alabama Governor George Wallace also used state troopers to block the integration of Tuskegee High School. So all of that stuff is like today. It feels like today, this immigration stuff and integration stuff. Oh my gosh. But those are some of the facts, Neil.
All right. And in 1967, Baby I Love You by Aretha Franklin became the number one R&B song in the country.
Now, you set that up earlier by saying something about Aretha Franklin. I forgot already. But
yeah. She had the number one song in the country today in 1967, Baby I Love You.
Okay, that's what you said. Yeah. That's a great song. So my 26-year-old daughter sang that song at my 30-year-old daughter's wedding. Now that was a few years ago, but and I just thought it's hard to. Aretha is one of those artists that if you don't do it right, you can't do Aretha. And I still give big shout outs to my daughter for doing that, showing her prowess as a vocalist. So it was a great moment for me. So I love that song, and I'm glad you brought it up today.
Dr. Joni said that's a phenomenal song. It is. And Aretha Franklin was also a supporter of the civil rights movement. So when you think about the 60s and the 50s and how her career and the money that she made from songs like this actually helped fund the movement and a lot of the work that Dr. King did. And so it's good when you have artists that can mix art and activism together, like the Queen of Soul, Miss Aretha.
Yeah. And Dr. Joni, that was really cool. It really was. It was a moment of moments for sure. Our Black-owned newspaper of the day, folks, is the Dallas Examiner. The Dallas Examiner is the leading African-American newspaper in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The Examiner has been the voice of the Black community since 1986. The weekly newspaper features an in-depth look at issues that affect your community. The Examiner's mission is to inform, educate, uplift, and inspire its audience. So check out the Dallas Examiner. You can go to their website, and that means you can get it anywhere. So check them out, folks.
Dr. Joni says, "Oh, how cool to have your daughter singing at her sister's wedding. That's beautiful." And Patricia says, "Nice memory, Stacy."
Absolutely.
So yeah, memories keep the heart warm. And to keep yourself educated on what's pivoting from left to right in Black America, you can always head over to BlackPressUSA.com as you see the top stories, the roots of slavery and its lasting effects. So Black history is 365 at BlackPressUSA.com.
And RNG did give us a shout out last night. Appreciate that, of course, on his RNG Swag Sports. He did. Listen, he was going in last night, y'all. Y'all got to go back and check it out because he was not having some things and obvious stuff that he wasn't having. So check him out. Go back and check him out on YouTube, the RNG Swag Sports. That was really cool. Appreciate that. And thank you all for tuning in. And we will see you tomorrow. We got a special guest again, Niele, at the end of this week. We're going to talk to Bill Cosby again, but about something that perhaps is on a lot of your minds. So tune in Friday morning for a very special, never before topics, never before broached with the one and only Bill Cosby this Friday. So check us out. Stay tuned, and we will see you tomorrow.